We got Babe Ruth's handwritten letter to his mistress, sold for $201,000.
Ooh.
How crazy is that?
How the hell do people get their hands on
The
this
craziest
stuff?
part about it is that it's
That's it. We're
sold.
forging Babe Ruth's signature. We're gonna sell shit. Let's go.
Yeah, like
It's sold in 2004 for $86K, and it went up.
Wow. Talk about an ROI, baby.
Yeah, it's crazy shit. So I was reading more about it. I didn't know Babe Ruth was like a huge like partier and shit.
I mean,
The guy was drunk.
he was always
the
drunk.
dude
Like,
was
Yeah.
smoking cigs when he was up to bat.
That's wild.
The guy was.
I mean, he had a beer belly like for days. Like that
Yeah.
man was not in good shape.
Drinking
He
and
was in
smoking
awful
in the
shape.
dugout.
Yeah.
Guy hit nukes though.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, whatever. I mean, as long as you hit
Hit
the ball
nukes.
like he was, I mean, it doesn't matter.
All right. So do you remember a few years ago when Adam Ottavino was signed by the Yankees,
Yes.
and he said that he could strike Babe Ruth out
Yes.
like as many
Yeah.
times? What do you think? Do you think
Absolutely
modern
not.
pitcher could strike Babe Ruth out like very easily?
A modern pitcher, I think there are some pitchers that absolutely could. I mean, think about it.
Strike Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth was a bum.
Yeah, but
You kidding me?
he was going up against guys that were throwing like 60 miles an hour.
They were throwing like
Time.
high 80s, low like okay.
But
So like
nowadays,
yeah,
like,
yeah, no.
it's different.
And then they didn't develop like the first pitcher who really had a good curveball was Bob Gibson. Bob Gibson absolutely torched the league in '69. I mean, there's a reason why Bob Gibson was so good as he was because he had the first modern pitch.
Yeah.
That's not the only thing he torched in 1969.
Yeah, I think any modern pitcher would absolutely
love that
dominate. Not dominate, but most modern pitchers would dominate Babe Ruth. Nick, what do you think? Do you think like a guy like Adam Ottavino could dominate?
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so.
I mean, do you think the pitch? So Walter Johnson was known for being like an absolute flamethrower during that time, and he threw roughly 95 miles an hour. The average fastball, like a guy who throws 95 miles an hour today, is like considered average. Like, and now you're throwing 95 with movement. Like, you can't tell me if Noah Syndergaard came up against Babe Ruth, or even like a guy like Chaz Rowe, who's not a good pitcher, but can throw absolute junk. He can throw 98 with movement. No shot Babe Ruth makes contact with that.
No shot. He makes contact.
No shot. I think if Babe
You're
Ruth,
talking about one of the greatest hitters that ever lived.
yeah, I think if Babe Ruth were to see that pitch, he would shit his pants in like 1.5 million ways.
Would you say the same thing about Ted Williams?
I mean,
That dude was almost God when it came to hitting.
he was. I mean, he's one of the greatest hitters. I think Williams probably would have stacked up a little bit better than Babe Ruth. I mean, I think for pure hitting, Ted Williams, like Babe Ruth was ahead of his time in the same way that Wilt Chamberlain was ahead of his time. Like both those guys were very good for were the top of their that's why they both set insane records during their time because they were just way ahead of their time. There was no one like him. However, by the 40s, more and more players were getting better at baseball. Baseball was getting better. The product was getting better. And every so often, baseball players just get better. I mean, the players we have now are probably better than the players who ever been. Babe Ruth never had to face those guys. If Babe Ruth would have faced those guys, it would have been a different story. There was a lot of things that were going for Babe Ruth that made him have a huge advantage over people now. He's facing guys who throw 88 junk balls. There was no such thing as an off-speed pitch back then. You're just throwing 88. If you could throw a little bit harder than that, you were a god. That's how it worked back then. And so, yeah, if you're throwing a 97, 99 mile an hour fastball that cuts in on you, if you give him Blake Triton's sinker, no shot he hits that.
I'm just saying what you're saying. Okay, I want to make this clear on
Yes.
the record.
Yes.
So guys like Babe Ruth, Ted Williams, Hank Aaron,
No.
Willie Mays, you're telling me those guys can't hit those guys?
I mean, no, I'm not saying those guys. I'm saying Babe Ruth. Back in the dead ball era, baseball was way different than it was even in the 1940s. I'm not wrong. I'm just speaking truths.
It's okay.
You're just
All right,
afraid to hear
At
it.
the end of the day, this is all hypothetical. There's no way of us knowing how Babe Ruth would play
We gotta
nowadays
do-
because he's dead.
Okay, we got to do what they did.
dead.
We got to
Not
do
only
it.
that, he just played in a different era.
You just can't. It's so hard to compare. This is how I am with the NBA. It's so hard to compare eras. It's so hard to say how someone played now because you just truly don't know. It's a hypothetical.
What we gotta
you can
do-
argue about it, but there's no fact behind it.
We
It's
got to
just you
do the Rocky Balboa, animated kind of thing with Mason the Line Dixon that got Rocky Balboa out of retirement. We got to just do that again. And
just
and
unfreeze Babe Ruth's body.
I
make him
mean,
a robot.
we could unfreeze Ted Williams' body, see how he's doing,
True.
how he'd fare against modern
Could do
baseball.
that.
So
Yeah, but he'd be the 80-something-year-old body, not the 20-something-year-old body.
Hey, just juice him up a little bit.
yeah, give him some roids. I mean, also you could say
Taking the
that-
Asians to Orca.
You could also say if Babe Ruth had modern medicine, that it would have been different. What the players have today going for them is that they have fucking insane regimens and insane training stuff.
I was gonna say
Like-
those guys had the. That's the thing. They didn't have access to the weights and shit like they do
Yeah.
now.
I mean, there's actually this really cool footage.
Imagine Babe Ruth in the gym, fucking cigarette in mouth.
Yeah, there's this really cool
Curling one
footage
arm, beer in the other.
of spring training in like 1920s baseball. I think it was like the A's training for spring training, and they're just like tossing medicine balls back and forth, and that's like the extent of their training. They're like in like the very old timey gyms, like someone's hitting a boxing like thing, and that's pretty much all the training that they would do. And then they'd go home and just drink beer and beat their wives, and then go to the ballpark the next day.
Go beat their wives.
So
I mean, unfortunately, he ain't wrong.
He's not wrong. That's why I'm laughing. He's not wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not laughing at them getting beat.
Hilarious.
this is interesting. So they're asking in the comments, if we
Loading
flip the
your
question,
mug
do you think pitchers like Walter Johnson, Bob Gibson, or Bob Feller could pitch in today's league?
Yes.
I think Gibson 100% could. Gibson had modern
Walter
stuff.
Johnson could pitch in today's league.
Again, with Walter Johnson, what I was saying is that he maxed out at like not as fast as we think. He was a flamethrower, but his max was different than it was in modern times. I mean, part of the reason why pitchers were able to go so much back then is because they weren't throwing breaking stuff. They were throwing one pitch, and they didn't take the same
Not
tax
only
on their
that,
arms.
but I mean, let's be honest. Like they didn't. People get more hurt now because they work out more. That
Yeah.
means you have more muscles to hurt.
Exactly, because you're stronger now than they were back then. I mean, players now are way stronger.
It can also be softer now too.
I wouldn't say that's the case. I mean,
People get hurt. They're not as apt to continue to play nowadays as they were back then.
I mean, guys who play broken ribs.
I agree
what are,
with that.
What are people going on the not able to play
Yeah,
for a game?
hey, wait a
because they
minute.
need a
Wait
day
a
off?
minute. Here you go.
How many times did a professional athlete back then have to take a day off just because they needed rest?
well, but we were saying the same thing. Is baseball's more max effort now? It's a lot more max effort. It's a lot more putting more effort into every pitch, putting more into every at bat. You're playing a lot more max effort now. You know, players aren't. There's Kevin.
We're good.
Players aren't showing up drunk to games. Players aren't showing up. You know, players will miss games hungover now. I will say that. Players used to play through the hangover. Players take days off for hangovers. I'll give you that one. But I think players just are stronger, more physical now, and that they take time off because their bodies are bigger and they're not made to be handling this. So I don't think they're softer now. I think it's just a modern medicine, an aspect of modern medicine.
I don't think, contrary to what Johnny just said, I definitely 100% agree that they're bigger, stronger, blah, blah, blah. However, there's athletes that don't need to take as much time off as other athletes. So I think it's dependent upon the person, one. And I think that nowadays it's not even close to the number of different reasons why people take time off as opposed to back then you always played.
What are you talking about back then, though? How long ago? Like we're talking about 1910s?
I'd have to probably do deeper research, but I'm probably saying going back at least 20 or 30 years.
Oh, we're just talking 30 years.
I'll give you a ballpark of 20 to 30 years.
All right, so I'll come back with you tomorrow with some stats about, you know, the percentage of games played by players and stuff like that. You know, I'll come with you with some numbers about this.
Awesome. I'll do my homework tonight too, Johnny.
All right, sounds good. We'll talk
On the
tomorrow.
record?
I'll see you right here tomorrow.
Right here, mano and mano. We'll duke it out.